Nobody tells you this because it doesn't look cool in your typical Instagram photo or LinkedIn posts, but successful people actually became successful because they followed two very strong concepts. First, they understood the power of strategic quitting, and secondly, they also understood the power of what we call sticking. Let me explain. So what I would like to talk about today is a very simple yet powerful concept, which is you should know what and when to quit so you can win. In other words, if you want to be successful at anything, you really need to know when to push through the difficult times, but also when to quit the things that just aren't working. Hi there, I'm Tomas and I've been working in the big tech industry for the last 6 years now in roles ranging from business development, strategy and operations. Like many of you, during both my professional and personal life, I come across multiple instances in which, looking back, I can acknowledge that I didn't really take the best decision. In some of those instances, I should have quit way earlier than I did, whereas in others, I deeply regret not sticking through. What made this super clear to me was this very short yet powerful book by Seth Godin called The Dip. Let's go through a high-level summary of the book, and before I forget, please note that you can find the link to the book in the description of the video. The first interesting concept of this book is called the surprising value of being the best in the world. If you think about it for a minute, our culture celebrates the ones we perceive to be the best at what they do. We provide recognition to the business, product, song, or employee who achieved that #1 spot. A very simple way to confirm this is if we look at the rewards of those who are the best in the world at what they do, as they are very skewed. To a point where it's very typical for the #1 to get 10 times the benefit of the one that stayed in position 10 and 100 times the benefit of the one that stayed in position 100. Seth provides two examples to illustrate this. The share of sales of the International Ice Cream Association and box office ratings from a bad week in August 2006. Seth then explains that this value of being the best in the world is explained by two very simple reasons. First is that time is limited and by nature people are risk averse, which means that they will first look for the one who is the best in the world at what they do. The second is that if you want to be on top, then there's only room for a few, which creates this very strong concept of scarcity. But now you might be thinking, wait, what does he actually mean by best in the world? Well, it's best in the sense of what is best for them right now, given their beliefs and knowledge, and in the sense of their world, which is their accessible universe. The second very strong concept of Seth's book, which is the one that we'll spend the most time on, is this visual representation of the relationship between the effort that you put into something and the visible results. According to Seth, there are three potential situations that can be shown in graph form: the dip, the cul-de-sac, and the cliff. I hope I've pronounced that right. According to Seth, almost everything that is worth doing in this life is controlled by the dip. At the beginning, when you start something, it's always super fun and new, right? Think about the time where you've learned an instrument or started posting content online, for instance. It's initially super interesting and you start to receive very good feedback from the people around you. For instance, when I started this YouTube channel, it was super interesting to see the first videos going online, the boom of the first video, and people just overall engaging and providing very good feedback on it. Over the following days and weeks, I experienced a super steep learning curve as I was understanding how to edit and shoot videos, and frankly, just the joy of working for myself was keeping me going. I think you've got the point, but whatever your new thing is, it's very easy to stay engaged in the beginning. But then the dip happens. Seth describes the dip as the long slog between starting something and mastery. A long slog that is actually a shortcut, as it gets you where you want to go faster than any other path. Seth also talks about a very interesting example of the famous CEO. If you think about it, the vast majority of CEOs have a proven track of enduring a very long dip. Decades of sticking, keeping their head down, and just being strategic about where they want to invest their time and energy. As Seth rightfully says, it's easy to be a CEO, what's hard is getting there. The second graph that might represent the situation where you've been in is called cul-de-sac, which is French for dead end. Compared to the dip, is much simpler. It's those situations in which you work, and nothing changes much and you get nowhere. It doesn't get a lot better, it doesn't get a lot worse, it just stays the same. Think about those instances in which people are stuck in a job doing the same thing for years without any promotion on the horizon. They might be working as hard as they can, but they aren't guaranteed to get any results from their efforts, and even if they do, those are negligible rather than exponential. There's not a lot more to say about the cul-de-sac except to realize that it exists and to embrace the fact that if you find yourself in one, you need to get out of it fast. That's because if you think about it, a dead end is keeping you from doing something else. So there's a very high opportunity cost. So summing up, the Cup-de-sac teaches us that the opportunity cost of investing your life in something that is not going to get better is just too high. The third and last one is called the cliff. Seth calls it a cliff as it's those situations in which you can't quit until you fall off and the whole thing falls apart. As you can imagine, this is very painful and traumatic, so you want to avoid this at all costs. One of the examples that Seth shares that reflects this is smoking. It becomes more addictive the more you consume it, so the pain of quitting just gets bigger until you're often forced to. The good news is that in most cases it's the other two curves that are in force, but it's important to be mindful of situations that might be indicative of a cliff. So what about you? I want to challenge you to think critically about a few instances in which you've been in each of these situations and ones in which you are potentially right now. If you like what you saw, then feel free to subscribe, but also share in the comments section a few examples where you've applied this to your own context. See you in the next video!